Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half Danish on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel many times before, and I've had very nice beers from both of these breweries, in fact. And I'm sure I've had one or two collaboration beers from them here on the channel before. But it's always nice to try the beers from both of these breweries when they're releasing new things. And yeah, I'm curious to see what this new collaboration is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review, we are going to return to Beerbliotek. So this particular beer is called Haaaze. It comes in at 9% ABV. It's a New England hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. It's number 323 in their numbering system, and it's brewed in collaboration with Gamma Brewing Company, who are from Herlev in the northwest of Copenhagen. And yeah, we've had many beers from these guys before. But yeah, Gamma Brewing Company are, of course, famed for their New England IPAs. Beerbliotek do a lot of different things. But this particular beer was released as part of the local Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2022. And when I saw that, Beerbliotek had another collaboration with Gamma, I thought this is one that we really need to review. And it has actually been a wee while since I've had a New England IPA from Beerbliotek, if memory serves me correctly. So, as I said earlier, curious to see what this is going to have in store for us. So, hopefully, it's another good one. But let's crack on and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Beerbliotek and from Gamma Brewing Company, and you will no doubt see more added to both of those lists in the near future because these are breweries that I come across very regularly. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for both the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you and the Danish ones. This beer will appear in both of those because it is dual nationality, and those lists are added to very regularly because of where I live in the south of Sweden. Got lots of Danish and Swedish beer coming up on the channel. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Beerbliotek first off then, since these guys are the home brewery. So Beerbliotek, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2013 by a multinational group of friends. This is Adam Norman, who's from Australia, Richard Bull, who's a Kiwi, New Zealand, Anders Hedlund, who's Swedish, and then Darl Denecker, who comes from South Africa. So Adam and Richard used to run Bar Doppio in Gothenburg, and then Daryl and Anders were regular customers at the bar, and they often just used to sit and talk about beer. And then one day they decided that they wanted to start brewing, so they bought a kit and brewed their own beer, and it went very well for them. But the original brewery was in the old Klippan Sugar building, which is a really old building very close to the old Carnegie Brewery in Gothenburg, quite a famous brewery actually. And the original brew kit that they had was one of Brewdog's old ones, if I remember rightly, and it was from Brewfab in Scotland. But in their first year, they brewed 38 different varieties of beer, and all of their beer has continued to be produced in quite small batches. And the idea behind this is that they want to focus on recipe development, and they very rarely brew the same beer more than once. So they don't have a fixed range, if you like, but there are certain beers that appear quite regularly. A Moment of Clarity would be one. They have just introduced a new lager that's going to be a regular brew. A Passion for Gingers was one that used to appear very often. So they do have some beers that appear yearly. They do new versions of some beers every year, and they do have ones that are brewed fairly regularly as well these days, but they do continue to focus quite heavily on recipe development. But fast forward a little bit to 2015, these guys opened a new brewery in Kungston, which is where they now have their tap room and run their main brewing operations, and the old brewery is these days used for producing sour beers, and they're also doing a barrel aging project in the new brewery as well, although if memory serves me correctly, they haven't released any of the beers from the barrel aging project through Systembolaget, so I'm not sure exactly where you can get these from. But over the years they've continued to develop these different recipes. The current brewmaster is the Italian Riccardo Boff, who studied brewing and distilling at Heriot Watt in Edinburgh. They produce many different breweries, of course, and he worked for Pilot Brewery in Scotland, Kramer Lee in Korea, and then he came to Gothenburg. But he joined Beerbliotek in late 2020, and then in early 2021, Beerbliotek actually purchased a 750 litre distillery, and they started a spirits company which is known as Wet City, and they released their gins through Systembolaget in August of 2021. But the idea behind the name Beerbliotek for the brewery is that they want to brew a wide variety of beers so that the customers can always learn something new about a different malt variety, hop variety, a style, a yeast, whatever. They want to keep teaching people about different things to do with beer. But the name Beerbliotek, of course, bibliotek is Latin and Swedish actually for library, and that's it. So basically a beer library. That's the inspiration behind the name. But as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 310 different kinds of beer, but as you can see, the number on this one is 323, so there has been a very small amount that has never made it public, but some of those might well be barrel aged in the barrel aging project, so keep your eye out for those. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Beerbliotek for the moment. So if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the away side of things then, over to Denmark. So, Gamma Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are these days based in Herlev, which is in the northwest of Copenhagen. So, the brewery was founded back in 2015 by 4 friends who were bartenders in the various craft beer bars around Copenhagen city, and they used to often talk about how it would be cool to have their own brewery. So, in the early days, they took in a new owner, and so the team at the brewery these days is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Koy and Nick, and they all had a little bit of homebrewing experience, and 2 of them had also worked in the Ulsnegern in Copenhagen, who went on to purchase the former Stronzo brewery in Gørløse in the northwest of the city. And it was this facility that went on to become Ølkollektivet. And yeah, many breweries have brewed there, of course. But one of the co-owners is also a co-owner of the May Ulsnegern bar in Aarhus as well. But apparently, when Ulsnegern got Ølkollektivet up and running, they were invited to join. They got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery without having had any experience of running a business. But it went quite well for them though, and they expanded twice, getting new tanks and things in, and at maximum they were producing around 500 hectolitres of beer per year at Ølkollektivet. But Ølkollektivet over the years has of course been home to Ulsnegern, Gamma Brewing and Dry and Bitter. Those were the main 3 breweries operating out of there, but Ulsnegern also brewed the Bad Seed beers under contract before they got their new brewery out by Aalborg, and Ghost Brewing and Rooster have also brewed in this facility as well, but they have since moved on. Ghost Brewing of course brew most of their things these days at Amager Bryghus. But in a little bit later on, in July of 2020, Gamma Brewing announced that they were going to move to a new brewery in Herlev, and they worked on building this brewery up over the next few months. So in February of 2021, they produced their last beers in Gørløse before they moved to their new site in Herlev, and the first beers were released from Herlev in March of 2021. But as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 160 different kinds of beer, and I think it's fair to say that Gamma Brewing Company are known mainly for their different New England hazy IPAs, albeit they do produce a few other styles as well, and we have had some very nice beers from them that haven't been New England hazy IPAs. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Gamma Brewing Company for the moment. And again, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's it for your history section in this video. But let's get on and have a little look at the beer itself and see how we go. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is a little bit different, although I have noticed that Beerbliotek have been mixing things up a little bit recently. This is, of course, a 330ml can, which is the standard from Beerbliotek. I always love it with Beerbliotek how they put the made in Sweden thing, the Swedish craft beer. But yeah, as you can see, Beerbliotek crossed with Gamma, just simply called Haze. It says on the side here, collaborations are an integral part of our brewing philosophy, so it was only good times when our mates from Denmark stopped by to brew some Haze. Get in touch with beerbliotek.com or gammabrewing.com. But yeah, as we said earlier, this one is a 9% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This one is hopped with Idaho 7 and HBC 630. So we know Idaho 7 quite well. Both of these hops, incidentally, are American, but Idaho 7 comes in at about 14% alpha acid. It gives you some lovely kind of soft tropical fruits in my experience, you know, like apricots, papayas, pineapple, a little bit of passion fruit and mango in there as well. But HBC 630 is a new experimental hop that I hadn't come across before. So it's produced by the Hop Breeding Company, hence HBC. But it gives you between 13 to 14% alpha acid, and it's supposed to give you a little mix of kind of raspberry and cherry, but also some kind of peachy and banana type notes. So this should be quite interesting actually. But 330ml can, this one, I believe that I paid about 40 Swedish kroner for this. So this one is about €4 then, somewhere in the region like £3.30, I guess we could say. Sterling, and then probably, what's that going to be, about $5 American, something like that. But yeah, should be quite nice. A 9% New England double IPA. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. And there is another nice beer coming out from Beerbliotek as well next month, so you will see me review that one as well. So there we go. Should be the last little bit of this up and we'll get it out and into the glass. There we go. It's interesting, this one, not the haziest beers that I've come across from either of these breweries, just on that first look at the appearance. But anyway, let me just line the can up again so that it looks nice for the video because of OCD and all of this kind of thing. But there we go. So anyway, you can see we've got all the beer out and into the glass. So the head on this one, I would say, it's roughly about a 2/3 finger head. I would actually describe the head on this beer as being perfect white. It's not even like a little bit, it's not even a little bit kind of creamy in colour or anything like that, or slightly off-white. I'd say it's a perfect white head on this one. Beautiful, very small bubbles there. You can see that if I bring it up to the camera, of course. It looks very, very nice. But yeah, pretty awesome, I have to say. So yeah, nothing else we really need to say about the head on this one, but in terms of the colour of this beer, I would say that if we shine the light through this one, it is kind of very dark yellow. I always like comparing the colour of New England hazy IPAs to different different fruit juices and things like that. So yeah, this one is a very kind of deep yellow colour, so like a kind of dark mango juice almost. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on, one, the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. New England IPA like this is going to have in the region of a 90-minute wort boil. But yeah, any barrel aging that you do, any adjuvants that you put in will of course play a role as well. But yeah, mainly it's the different types of malts that are in this one and the length of the wort boil. But yeah, lovely kind of bright yellow colour there, and it reminds me of a kind of dark mango juice. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what the colour reminds me of. Level of haze in this one isn't actually all that much, and that indicates to me that this is a more kind of barley malt leaning New England IPA. It does say on the side it does have oats in it. Actually, it doesn't mention anything about wheat, which is quite interesting. So yeah, but the level of haze depends on the oat content, the wheat content, and the yeast. Of course, in this case, we don't have wheat according to the ingredients list there. So yeah, this will be a more barley malt orientated and an oat orientated New England IPA. So yeah, not the haziest that we've come across, But yeah, it certainly looks the part of a kind of modern IPA. I've seen beers that look like this one called American IPAs before, but they're saying it's haze, so we'll say it's New England because both of these breweries know what they're doing. But anyway, I don't think we really need to say any more about the appearance of this one. But yeah, I will say as well, this beer actually feels quite heavy. This one is a big dense bugger of a beer actually, so we just need to be careful with this, show respect. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at the aroma of this. I'm very curious to see what this is going to have in store for us. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this smells very, very nice, but you can smell this is a bit of a beast. You really can. You can smell that this is a big boozy bastard of a thing. But yeah, this is quite nice. It actually does smell a little bit more like kind of one of these so-called American IPAs, and they tend to be, I should point that out, they tend to be somewhere between the West Coast and the New England. So this beer smells a little bit kind of like that. So yeah, it actually has a little bit of kind of sharpness to it, which is interesting. Quite kind of crisp and light in its malts, and just more grassy in its green component. That's the first impression I would say that I've got of the aroma of this. But let's break it down a wee bit more and just see what we can get before we taste the beer. So yeah, where do we start? So backbone of this beer, you do get a little bit of a kind of, you do get a little touch of a kind of bread crusty note in there, absolutely. On top of that, there's a little bit of a light kind of white bready sort of thing, which I do quite like. But you can smell with this one, this really is a more kind of barley malt leaning beer. It has a little bit of that more kind of oily character to its malt base. So yeah, a little touch of bread crust, wee bit of kind of barley malt, wee bit of a kind of barley malt underneath, but you also have quite a little bit of kind of sweetness and booziness and things like that on the top, absolutely. So yeah, you can definitely smell a little bit of a kind of, on top of the bread crust and the kind of bready barley malt, on top of that there's a wee bit of a there is a little bit of a kind of creamy oaty character out of it, which I really quite like that. You can smell that it's kind of thick in that sense, but it's not overly thick, as I say. It smells like the oats are just giving you a little bit of depth to the aroma rather than anything else. But I do actually get quite a little bit of booziness and sweetness out of this. So I wonder if there is a wee bit of golden promise in here. So a nice wee touch of a kind of oily, there's a wee bit of a kind of oily, sweet, caramelly sort of thing. So yeah, a little bit of straight up sweet oily caramel, but it does smell a wee bit more like a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity kind of thing, like that oily biscuity character. So that's quite interesting. The malt base in this one, it actually smells very light and crisp in some ways, but then you've just got the airy oats underneath it and a wee bit of bread and bread crust. So yeah, this beer is doing some interesting things, I have to say. I do like how this goes together. Yeah, aroma wise, I think this is quite nice. On the malty side of things, on the hoppy side of the beer, it's interesting too. So there's definitely a wee touch of earthiness in there. I get quite a bright floral aromatic character out of this. And remember, the New England IPAs are going to rely mainly on late addition and dry hopping, and they don't contribute so much to the bitterness. West Coast IPAs, of course, have both of those kinds, but they also have early addition hopping, which gives you a much deeper kind of green component to the beer as well. But yeah, there is quite a bit of a zesty grassiness to this one, and that is quite interesting as well. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, as I say, is quite interesting. I don't think, if I didn't know that there was Idaho 7 in this, I don't think I would pick it out as being Idaho 7. I would probably think this beer had like a little bit of Motueka or something. You know, the first fruity notes that come out of this one for me, it has a little bit of this kind of gooseberry, kind of slightly limey character to it. I do get a wee bit of peachy sharpness, which is going to be from the HBC 6, is it 630? Yeah, HBC 630. So the peachy notes out of this would make sense. In fairness, underneath that, you do get a little bit of a kind of tropical note, and it's a bit pineapple, well, maybe not pineapple, it is a little bit kind of like papaya, apricot, that kind of dry fruity note in there. So I do get a wee bit of, as I say, a peachy sharpness, There's a bit of that kind of, which I assume is from the HBC 630. There's a bit of a kind of dry apricot papaya type thing. And that'll be from the Idaho 7. But I do actually get quite a bit of a kind of limey gooseberry sort of thing out of this one. So the way that that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me in this context, this beer. So yeah, I very much like how this one goes together. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the aroma. As I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma before you get stuck into the beer. But yeah, the fruity side of this one is quite surprising, and this is quite different from other New England hazy IPAs that I've had in recent times. And in fairness to them, they do say it's a hazy IPA. It's not New England. So yeah, there's a bit of leeway there for it to be a wee bit different, should we say. But yeah, let's crack on with this. So this one is the Haze 9% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and Gamma Brewing Company from Herlev in Copenhagen on Sealand in Denmark. Slanja, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's nice. That is very nice. First impression, big, oily, slightly sweet leaning IPA, this one. I like this. I do like this. I've had really nice big oily New England IPAs like this before from Beerbliotek. So yeah, this one actually does have a wee bit of that kind of American IPA vibe to it rather than the hazy New England sort of thing. So maybe that's why they've just said hazy IPA. Because of course to me the New England IPA are the big creamy, oaty, wheaty sort of things. The West Coast IPAs are the lighter, kind of more oily, biscuity, caramelly sort of things. This one is somewhere in the middle. So I think I would, if I was tasting this blind, I would call it an American IPA. So maybe that's the reason they've just gone with hazy, because obviously, it does have a wee bit of the oaty haze to it. But it's a very nice beer. That's the main thing. We can debate styles and stuff all day, and beer is always subjective. Different people like different things. But yeah, I think this is a nice, solid beer, this one. Yeah. Yeah. Where do we start with this? I really do like this actually, and one thing I will say about it too is that at 9%, that thing is dangerously drinkable. Yeah, it is a very nice one. So let's focus middle third of the palate then. So the base of the backbone of the beer. Let's focus on that middle third of the palate. So yeah, you've got a little bit of bread crust just sitting underneath. Yeah, you've got a little bit of that bread crust kind of just sitting underneath. And that forms the backbone of the beer. There's maybe a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing to it as well, but again, not overly much. But then on top of that, you've got a light kind of crisp white bready character there. It does have a wee tiny hint of like a more grainy oatmeal bready sort of character as well, which is interesting. So yeah, bread crust, a little bit of white bread, oatmeal sort of thing. And then on top of that, you can feel the oaty layer actually. And that's probably the reason, I've said this before in beer reviews, for me, wheat is like a sort of thickening agent when it comes to these kind of more hazy IPAs. Wheat is the one that really thickens everything out. So yeah, this one, the oats kind of smoothen things out, the wheat thickens thing out, and the barley malt is the one that gives it a wee bit of crispness and contributes the most to the flavour of the malt base, I would say. So yeah, this one's quite interesting in the sense that it's got a bit of the crispness and then it's got the sweetness. So on top of that kind of light bready layer, you can feel like the oats are there and they're kind of smoothing out the top of the malt base. But this one, because of that lack of wheat and things like that and oat, and I guess the oat content relative to the barley malt in this is quite low, this beer actually leans towards that sweeter side of the New England hazy sort of spectrum. So yeah, you've got this kind of you can feel the sort of thicker side of the oats at the side of your palate. Then down the middle of your tongue, there's a little bit of a smoother oaty You can feel the lighter kind of side and the slightly sweeter side of the oaty character as well. Then you've got a little circle in the middle of your palate, and that is where the kind of sweeter side of this beer comes out. So, yeah, I do like the sweeter side of this. It's really interesting because it's actually a mix. It's almost like you've got layers in this. So you've got that little circle in the middle of your palate, and you can feel the base of it is like a kind of butter candy, Werther's Original butterscotchy sort of thing. But then in the dead centre of it, you do get a little bit more of a slightly concentrated sweet caramel. And the thing that you'll notice as well is that further into the aftertaste, you get a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity vibe out of this beer. So yeah, I really like how I do really like how all of this goes together. Yeah. Um. Yeah, it is very nice. I mean, the thing that you'll find with this beer is that it really just comes across as very smooth and very oily, and it really is, as I say, at the sweeter side of the whole New England spectrum. But I like this one. I like the sweeter side of these beers, and I think this one really does remind me more of these beers that are called American IPAs rather than the New Englands or West Coast Californias, whatever they're being called these days. So yeah, this is a nice kind of hybrid one for me actually. But I think we've said everything we need to about that middle third of the palate. Let's focus on the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there again, a wee touch of bread crust, a bit of a bready sort of thing. But then the base of that back third of the palate, the base of the back third of the palate is a little bit more of a it has got a wee bit more of bread crusty character to it, and further back on the palate, of course, you get slightly more bitter and grainy flavours coming out. So there's definitely a wee bit of that in there. On top of that, you get a slightly thicker white bready layer, which I do like, and then you can feel a wee bit of the oatiness creeping over into the back third of the palate, and then on top of all of that, there's a little bit more of a there is a wee bit more of a kind of the kind of yeasty farmhousey sort of thing. You get a little bit of that on this sitting on top of all of that on the back third of your palate. So the yeasty notes I think always come out at the very back of the palate. So yeah, on top of the back third of the palate then. So the yeasty side of this beer, it feels like a little bit more of a kind of dense bready sort of thing, and it's actually quite a sweet white bread that you get of it. So I like the yeasty side of this beer as well. But you can definitely feel that on the back third of the palate, the flavour feels taller. Then as you come further forward, it just condenses, it just squashes down a little bit together. And then you get all of the kind of different flavours out of this one. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense. It gets a big thumbs up from me. But yeah, awesome stuff. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. I think we said everything we need to about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. So the green component first off then. So back corners of the palate, you do get a little touch of earthiness out of the beer, but not too much, I'll hasten to add. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, but then as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic. So yeah, I really do like how that goes together. It's got a nice big kind of floral aromaticity to it. Round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of brighter, grassy sort of thing to this beer as well. The grassiness does have a wee bit of zesty character to it, in fairness, and the floral aromaticity for me has a wee teeny little bit of spiciness, but it feels a little bit deeper. But the green component in this one is quite nice. There must be a little bit of early edition hop in this. But yeah, mainly a late edition and dry hopping beer, this one, of course. But let's look at the front third of your palate and the fruitiness then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, there's a little bit of a kind of bready build up there. The base of that front third of the palate is a little bit more of a kind of smooth, white bready and oaty sort of thing. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together in this beer too. It's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, smooth white bready base in there. And yeah, some of the oats creep forward as well. The underneath of that fruity side of the beer is very nice, but then sitting on top of all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out the beer. The fruity side of this one is a bit different to what I've picked up before in the aroma. So at the back of that front third of the palate, you do get a wee bit of that peachy note, which will be from the 630, of course. But then, yeah, coming forward from that, you get a bit of the more, you get a lovely big juicy mango character coming out of it. Yeah, big juicy oily mango. Then underneath, as you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of that kind of more dry apricot papaya type thing. And these, of course, are all elements of the Idaho 7. Then as you move into the front half, the front third of the palate, it's quite interesting. You start to get a little bit of a more oily pineapple out of it. And yeah, I think it's quite an oily pineapple note that you get on the front half. I don't really get any of these cherry or raspberry kind of notes that we're supposed to get from the HBC 30, other than very small amounts just as you reach the front tip of the tongue. So yeah, it's quite an oily pineapple-y note that you get out of this beer, and I think it it goes together really nicely in that sense. The fruity side of this beer is really nice and oily, and I like the sweeter side of it too. So this is another IPA that's showing a different side that you don't see all that often, in my experience, when it comes to kind of New England hazies or whatever we're going to call them these days. But I like it. So well done to Beerbliotek and to Gamma for doing something a wee bit different. I think we've said everything we need to about the flavour, so let's round off with a look at the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, this beer's pushing towards the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation's quite smooth. It has got a degree of oiliness to it. It has got a bit of that oily kind of slick character, which has got that nice oily slick thing, which I very much enjoy. In terms of IBUs, this isn't very bitter at all. I mean, I think as a standard kind of 25 IBU or so. Malty side of things is the malty side of things is quite is very smooth in this, and this beer really does lean towards a kind of slightly more oily and sweet side of the New England IPA. And you've also got some big juicy fruity characters to it as well. So yeah, I do really like how this one goes together in that sense. So yeah, big thumbs up to both Gamma and Beerbliotek for how this beer goes together. Lovely big juicy oily and slightly dry fruity characters to this one. But yeah, let's leave it there then. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Beerbliotek and from Gamma Brewing Company. We will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But yeah, this one was the Haaaze number 323 in the Beerbliotek numbering system. But it was a collaboration with Gamma Brewing Company, of course, a 9% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA, although I would say it's more of an American IPA in reality. But check out my social media, check out Gamma and Beerbliotek's social media as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.